Hi everyone, welcome back to Young and Wifed Up. This is Marcella.
And I'm Gabby.
And thanks for joining us this week for another episode.
Before we get into today's topic, I want to quickly talk to you guys about our friend's new t-shirt company called Dust to Dust. So Dust to Dust specializes in creating cute, feminine, and Christian clothing and products. And it is specified to be more feminine for homemakers. And I'm wearing one of the shirts today. I'm going to show the camera.
It's cute.
It's Dust to Dust. Color. And that is one of the shirts that they're selling right now, and they sell in different colors. And so it's our friend Carly's new business, and we wanted to support her by having her featured on today's episode and next week's episode. And so she has a special offer for our listeners. If you use the code Young and Wifed Up with the and sign at your checkout with any of her products, you will receive 20% off. So that is you can use that code until the end of October. So it's an exclusive offer. And so I'm going to make sure to put her link on all of our socials and everything so you guys know where to get it. And look through some of her designs. They're all original designs that she made herself. And they're so nice. And a lot of them are based off of scripture.
Yeah,
and
the t-shirts are really good quality.
Yeah. So if you guys want to support a small business of a Christian homemaker, then this is one for you. Cool.
Nice.
We have a couple other things we want to talk to you about, some housekeeping. Can you talk to us about our Patreon account?
Yeah, so we just recently started, right before our current season, we started up a Patreon. So if you would like to support good quality Christian media, this is one really awesome way to do it, is by becoming a patron. We have the link on our website at youngandwifedup.com. There's 3 different tiers with different price points that you can become a monthly patron, with different perks depending on which tier you end up going for. So you can look at all of that stuff with the details and everything.
Yeah, and whenever you sign up to be a patron, you get the backlog of all of the content that we've already uploaded. And so far, we have a couple bonus episodes already up. You obviously get the early access to all of our main episodes.
Yeah,
I release all of our recommendation links, and sometimes we have little exclusive posts and embarrassing pictures and stuff like that you can only see if you pay. Yeah. So thank you so much to our patrons that have been supporting us. We really appreciate any amount that you guys have dedicated to us. It matters. We appreciate it. And we're just so thankful for any support that we're given, even just sharing with your friends and family. It's just been really exciting to see our listener grow. Our listener our listenership grow in the past few years, and we just have a community of women that are pursuing the Lord, and we're all just a hot mess trying to get through this life.
It's definitely grown substantially over the past 6 months or so. For some reason, whenever we take the breaks,
it's when we have
seasons, we have these really crazy growth.
Yeah. It's really encouraging to us, because sometimes it can be a little discouraging, thinking okay, we're putting all this work in, and I don't know, do people
like this?
Is this doing anything?
Yeah, but the numbers.
And we appreciate all of the messages that our listeners send us and encourage us. Yeah. It really does encourage us to keep doing this and keep cultivating relationships with you all. So thank you guys so much. I know we always say thank you for our support, but it really does mean so much to us.
Yeah, definitely.
Another way that you can get to know us a little better is if you join our Facebook group, also called Young and Wifed Up. And that we have all of our updates and announcements constantly. We have prayer requests threads, we have polls, and then you guys always get the exclusive on what our month looks like for our episodes. So I currently already have all of the episodes up on the Facebook group for you guys to check out the topics for this month. I'm really excited about this month's topics, so we hope you enjoy them.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is our kind of bigger episode where we can kind of do a little catch up. Mm-hmm. So how have you been doing this past month?
Good. I'm trying to think anything crazy. It's been
well, your baby is about to turn 1.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
That's a big thing.
That's a pretty big milestone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Time flew for sure. With the second kid, it's like I feel like with Seth, it felt like a year. With Eli, I feel like it's been like 6 months.
Yeah.
So that's kind of wild. And I will have 2 toddler boys in
my
house.
They're so much fun, though. They're so much fun.
He's like Eli, which is the younger one. He's getting to an age now where he can interact and actually physically play a lot more with Seth, which I know Seth is really excited about.
Yeah, he's been dying for this.
He's like, when is he gonna do something? Like, come on.
But I'm sure I went through that with you too.
Yeah. So, he's been just ecstatic now that like he can make Eli laugh and like they play with each, they chase each other around the house and like they do all of the brother things. So
that's really precious.
Yeah, sometimes Seth can be a little too
aggressive,
overzealous with the wrestling, and I'm like, he's still a baby. You have to be gentle. And then he kind of backs up and he's like, he has to remember like, okay, yeah, he's not my size.
Yeah, no, that's true. Anything else been going on?
We were just talking about Harry Potter, and the last time I mentioned it was on one of our Patreon
exclusive, bonus episodes,
which was what we were currently reading at that time. I finished the whole series.
Since then, that's awesome.
There were like a couple of books for me that were kind of like meh,
duds,
and then a few of them that were so good, especially like the last 2 I really enjoyed. And I think, like, overall, I really liked the series in general. And now you've started working on them.
I told her that I just started the first one.
She's crazy.
Yesterday, and I'm 80% done now.
That's insane.
And I don't know, I've been grinding on it. And I've just been having it on while I've been doing my tasks.
Do you put it on, like, 1.6?
I do 1.5 speed.
Okay.
Yeah. And so it is a little faster read, but it doesn't feel fast to me. It feels normal, like normal talk. Because when people make audio recordings of their voice, they talk so slow.
Yeah.
But anyway, I've been really enjoying it. And Marcella and I were not allowed to listen or watch Harry Potter or read Harry Potter when we were kids. So I was just telling Marcella, I'm healing my inner child. Which we hate stuff like that.
We hate so that cringy. Phrase. I can't believe you're saying that.
But genuinely, like, I feel like a kid again. Like reading this, it's so fun. It's such a fun, especially because it's autumn right now, so it feels like the perfect time to read.
Spooky time.
A book like that. But anyway, I know this is super controversial in the Christian community, but yikes, we lost half of our listeners.
I feel like it's a mixed bag. I've like seen a lot of like interesting debates and discussions over
me too
over things like that, and I think like I'm still trying to figure out where I land.
Me too. Like I feel like with my kids I might not, but
that's hard. It's
I
don't know. I think as adults you approach literature a lot differently than when you're children, so it's I don't know.
I understand why my mom did not want us to.
I understand too.
And like we respected it, but now we're enjoying it. Anyway, so other than that, I don't know. There hasn't been nothing really big the past month. I've been kind of anxiously waiting for a doctor's appointment, which isn't happening until the beginning of November. So I'm just kind of really on edge about that
until you get to it.
And so I've been kind of limbo with that stuff. But other than that, like we started our choir again. I play piano for a children's choir, and that's been really fun. And it is a little bit of a nightmare because I strongly dislike Christmas music, and if you're ever in like a performance group, you know that you start the Christmas music in August for your show that's coming in December. And so all my life, no matter what we've done, whether it be dance or orchestra or church events or whatever, Christmas has happened in August and has continued through until December. So it is kind of like, that's the only downside. Yeah, I'm just
it
swimming.
Does ruin Christmas music.
I'm swimming in Christmas music right now that I have to play. But other than that, like, the choir has been doing really well. I've been teaching, and I did one thing that's really sad that just happened to me last weekend is one of my piano students threw up all over my beautiful piano that I've had for many years now. And it was technically, I mean, we paid for it, but it was technically a gift from a family friend. And it was like a very special piano to them. And it was very special to me. And so it was very tragic. We had to junk it. We had to call somebody to come and junk it for us. And it was heartbreaking. And thankfully, the Lord provided a piano for me to use for the foreseeable future. It's not mine. It's like a lend. But so that was the nightmare of my weekend. It was very stressful. I had a few mental breakdowns and it was just like kind of, I was already feeling stressed about other things. And then this was kind of the last straw.
Yeah. The cherry on top.
Yeah. And so that was a very, I don't know. I felt like the end of an era when I lost my piano, which I know sounds very dramatic, but it's just been such a big part of my life and my students' lives for so long. And every single one of them that came in, even the little ones, like they came in and they were like, "Where's the piano?" Like they just knew that something was off and different. And I was like, I'm like trying to hype myself up and them and be like, we'll love this piano too, okay? But I'm like still struggling myself. But anyway, and so now my new thing is I need to probably have a bucket in my studio at all times in case something like that happens again.
It's not something you think of
Never.
Until it happens.
When I called I called a piano tuner in my area, and I also called a piano rebuilder, and both of them that are older men that have been in the industry for many
decades,
like 30, 40 years.
Yeah.
Both said they have never heard of this happening in their entire life, and both of them were like, we don't know what to do. It's ruined. Like it's there's nothing you can do because it was in the keys, underneath the keys. There was a pool of it inside the piano, and it was just done for. So anyway, that was very tragic, and I felt like I lost a friend, literally.
Yeah.
But anyway, other than that, I feel like that's a true catch up for our month. Yeah. And we have a pretty big topic to talk about today. I don't know. I knew I wanted to talk about this like a few weeks ago when I had some conversations with some girlfriends about it. And it's very popular on the internet right now. Mm-hmm. And it's so crazy. Even Vice wrote an article against this movement.
That's not surprising.
And and so it is a hot topic right now. And if you haven't heard of it before, we'll kind of explain. And I want to make sure that we make a kind of a disclaimer that like we are traditional wives. Like,
yeah.
We are not going to speak to the idea. We're not going to speak negatively about being traditional wives because we ourselves like say and encourage it of our sisters in Christ. And we also practice it ourselves.
Yeah.
But there is a growing movement that is more like on the internet now than I've ever seen before that I think is causing some confusion. And we just wanted to discuss it and kind of talk about the things that we like about the movement, the things that we are kind of iffy about and that are maybe not as great, and then things that we're like, whoa, like this, we need to really consider how these things might be a bad thing. So anyway, Marcella wrote this lovely script for today, and I'm just gonna let her go off, and I might like chime in every once in a while because I feel very strongly as well about these things, but I'm gonna let Marcella go ahead.
You can chime in a lot because I feel like this is more of an outline than a script.
When I was reading it, I was like, this is good. This is it. I'm done. Like I have nothing to contribute to this outline because it was just, I just think you articulated all the things that I've already been thinking in my mind. So what is the movement that we are speaking about today?
Okay, so the trad wife movement. Traditional wife movement. It's kind of been become more prevalent, I would say, in the past like
couple years.
Yeah, like 2 to 3 years maybe. Where more women are embracing staying at home, more traditional gender roles in a family, more of the basic like domesticity things like cooking, cooking good meals and, being able to keep your house clean and like
homeschooling's usually a part of the package.
Yeah, is typically part of the package as well. Sometimes like some homesteading is thrown in there as well. And I'm sure for people who kind of maybe follow women on the internet who lean more towards like creating content as far as like biblical womanhood goes, they kind of tend to be they run in kind of the same circles with a lot of those women. And so you may see a lot of this content on your feed, especially with the algorithms. Like sometimes I see a lot of stuff from people that I don't even follow just because of like Instagram, especially. I feel like most people are probably on Instagram by this point.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's kind of like, that's what the trad wives movement.
Yeah, I started seeing more when I first started seeing trad wife videos. That's usually what I see on TikTok or Instagram or whatnot.
Yeah.
Like people that I don't know, strangers that I'm scrolling on. At first it was really refreshing. Just like, wow,
yeah, totally.
Like this is just like so cool. And then I started to instantly follow anybody that I started seeing things that I agreed with, and I just was so encouraged by this almost
usually it's more conservative women,
more anti-feminist, like just really trying to embrace like things that I think are great. Good. But then I started to see a lack of why this, and I know we're going to talk about it later on in the episode, but I do think that before we talk about it, like we're not going to call any specific creator out or person out. Or group of individuals that we know.
There's so many, like.
Yeah. And there are some that I think are truly like the people that say that they're trad wives. I do think that there are some godly trad wives that are simply embracing the culture that they enjoy. They really do like the trad wife culture. They really want it. And they are godly women that think that this is, the best for them and their families. And we're not speaking to that because I don't have a problem. Like, if that's your style, that's your vibe, that's what makes you happy, that motivates you as a homemaker, like, do it, girl. Like, I've been in, like, the low-waist community, and that's also a fad, like a trend that has kind of cycled in and out. And I got swept up in the low-waist community, like, really fast when it was kind of it was starting to get at its peak. And that really motivated me as a homemaker. And I definitely see the issues with, like, if I associate with myself with this movement, then there's also like tons of feminism, critical race theory, like all kinds of things that I fully disagree with as a Christian that kind of comes with being in the zero waste. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think that when it comes to attaching yourself to any sort of like worldly movement, we have to really look at it and say, like, okay, like, we really like this is maybe more helpful for us, but do we want to say, like, this is who we are? You know what I mean? Yeah. And instead of saying, like, I just simply want to be a godly woman, and this is what I believe a godly woman does, and then I have my preferences and things I like to do and dress and all that stuff.
Yeah.
So Marcella, please start us off.
I'll start rattling off. Okay, so we'll go through, like, the good, the bad, and the ugly, sort of. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll go through sections like that. So the positive side of, like, the trad wives movement, which you've kind of already touched on, trad wives generally appreciate the arts of domesticity and homemaking. So they tend more towards, like the cleaning and cooking, keeping a home, all that stuff, which is great, which we encourage and also enjoy. They generally believe in traditional gender roles, usually the woman taking care of the home when possible. So the husband is going out to provide for the finances, and the woman is staying at home with the children. If they don't have any, then she's, working hard at home still. They generally reject feminist notions, not always, and sometimes this crops up in a different form, but they are more concerned about being feminine as opposed to being a feminist.
Right.
They generally see the value in marriage, motherhood, and family life in general, which is awesome.
Yeah.
I think that women valuing that home life more just contributes so much more, like, to society and culture in general. That the Lord has really shown common grace to.
That's what I'm just gonna say.
To these people who are embracing
yeah,
this.
Because there are, like, religious women that are doing this, but I've seen a large amount of non-religious women or women that are, like, ex-evangelicals or, people that used to be religious that are doing this. And it's still, like, that's a blessing, that those children get their mother at home, that mom is doing a lot of
obvious benefits.
Doing a lot of good. But there is a difference between good in thankfulness to the Lord, to the glory of the Lord, and then good that is, doing good for our society and our families, but it's not spiritual in nature and it's not fruit of a cleansed heart.
Right, yeah. I think one of the points I just made a minute ago where I was talking about they generally reject feminist notions, but sometimes I do see a lot of the time women saying, well, the reason why that you've been able to stay at home is because of feminism. Which is so far from the truth. Like, if you knew the history, like, when feminism started and even beforehand, like, what do you think women were doing before? It's not like
before they were taken out of their homes.
Yeah, and it's like feminists couldn't stand the idea, especially very specific, very prominent people in the feminist movement could not stand the idea that women would choose to stay at home if given the opportunity.
Yeah.
And so it's like, do we really want to go there? Like, the only reason you can stay at home is because of feminism? Like, women were staying at home beforehand anyway.
Yeah.
So no, we didn't need it to begin with.
Yeah.
Anyway, the unhelpful sides of the trad wife movement. There can be a tendency sometimes to romanticize certain eras, like the 1950s housewife, as, like, the ideal woman, when really a godly woman's character traits transcends any specific era. And I see it. I say 1950s specifically because I see that the most often.
Yeah, it's either that or, like, prairie
girls.
Which
prairie girls.
I love looking at the aesthetic. Don't get me wrong, it's very beautiful. It's just not me, girlfriend. I'm not a prairie girl.
Yeah, so, like, there can also be a tendency for trad wives to think more highly of certain lifestyles or even clothing choices, like homesteading is the best option for everyone and everyone should be doing it, or dressing folksy, or like Little House on the Prairie. Like, the more Laura Ingalls, the better. When honestly, like, traditional wives can and do come from many different home environments, lifestyles, and clothing choices. Now, I can understand, like, where sometimes, like, clothing is also kind of a difficult subject in and of itself. Like, tending a lot more towards androgyny and for what reasons you're doing it.
Which, if you would like to hear our talk about wearing dresses, it's in our Patreon account and it's there for all the tiers. And and we just talked about, like, wanting, like, why I've been gravitating more towards skirts and dresses, and that's part of kind of, like, our world. Like, I don't want to totally spoil the episode because it's a good episode, but it essentially, like, why do we want to present ourselves, like, less feminine? Like, is there a reason why? And so I see the benefit of women saying, like, prairie dresses, like, make me feel beautiful. Feminine. It's the most feminine thing. But also, like, we don't live in the prairie days. Like, if you are living on a farm and your husband loves that, and this is, like, a vibe for you, like, absolutely. But I've seen from some creators where it's like, this is the epitome of femininity. Yeah. This is the top tier.
Where there are so many, like, there are so many other choices of style that are still modest and feminine that aren't necessarily like folksy.
Yeah.
You know? And so, yeah, like, I mean, even if you don't live on a farm and you like that vibe, do it. Like, nobody's stopping you.
And this, I don't want to totally go on a tangent about this specific thing, but I've started to think a little bit, because sometimes I can start to feel myself a little insecure when a lot of people that I follow and a lot of people in my life that agree with me on so many everything, like most everything, are like, we need to homestead and be off the grid. And I'm like, yes, like I agree with a lot of those principles, but my husband is in technology.
Right.
And so like Ryan and I probably will never live off the grid.
Yeah.
Like we Christians need to be in technology. Christians need to be in these different parts of the world. And like, it would be weird if Ryan and I were like cosplaying as Little House on the Prairie, but we're like,
when really that's not when we're like,
that's not where our giftings, and it's not where like the Lord has placed us.
Right.
Like the Lord has placed us in this, Ryan working in the field of technology.
Yeah. He has a mind towards certain things. The Lord created him that way.
And it's like, we need the homesteaders and we also need the Christians in the cities. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And so that's where I can struggle with the trad wife thing, where it's like, this is the only way that we can be like totally like glorifying to God, or the most feminine thing is to be like, like Little House on the Prairie on a farm. And it's like, I still have inclinations to those things. Like I want chickens. Like I, especially with my like low waste stuff, I want to live a more sustainable lifestyle. I want us to be less dependent on the food chain and all that stuff. But there's also another side where it's like, Ryan and I are just not those kind of people. And it doesn't mean that we're not doing it right. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
Just because we don't desire those things for our family doesn't mean that we're not traditional enough.
Yeah. And
you know what I mean?
And you can still live in a city and still want to do things a little bit more crunchy. Yeah. Like you were saying, like if you want to be a little bit more self-sustaining with certain things that you do have control over, like do your research and see what you can change. Yeah. Even if, you know, I mean, some women really do want to like homestead and maybe their husbands are just not for it. Yeah. You have to work with what you got. Yeah. Yeah. And so anyway, another thing, trad wives can attribute certain and specific homemaking tasks as more feminine, aka baking, decorating the home, getting dolled up on a regular basis. Sometimes it can feel like they believe like cleanliness or cooking is actually next to godliness. And that there's sometimes an over emphasis on this, instead of like, we're going to talk about like, why are you valuing those things? You're not doing it because they make you more holy. Yeah, there's almost like a light works-based righteousness sort of thing, when it's like, I've checked all of my boxes as a traditional wife. I'm cooking every meal. I'm scrubbing my floors day and night. My children are clean and bathed, and they're, they did their schoolwork and all these things. But you could have a rotten, ugly heart, be rude and disrespectful to your husband, be unkind to your children and aggressive. It's like doing those girly things. I bake all my bread and I do all the that does not mean that you are holier. Like, holiness is a heart posture. And it's interesting, when the Lord as the Lord sanctifies you, you do end up caring for your family more, caring for your home more, caring for your husband more. It's like the fruit that comes out of it. It's like practical theology. It's just like, now we're doing the thing that God has been changing us for. And but it seems like with the trad wife movement, it's like, I've checked all my boxes and like, this is kind of like my righteousness. This is what I have to give. Yeah. And it's like, even our best works are dirty rags. Even our best. Even my sparkly clean countertops are still not enough to make me righteous. Yeah. Yeah, which is sad. Okay, moving on to like the straight up bad. There are trad wives that believe in gender roles and they know it works, but they don't actually know why. Or they do know the why and they reject it. There are many aspects of the trad wife movement that do align with the image of a biblical woman, but they forget that the biblical standard came first, not the 1950s ideal woman. So it's like we see a lot of these pagans in the trad wife movement where it is this lifting up of what am I doing in my home, and I'm doing all these things, and like look at how traditional I'm being and all the traditional things that I'm doing, and I'm staying at home and I'm letting my husband like go out and provide, and and I'm not, maybe she's being really nice and like being very respectful and maybe he loves her. But it's like, why are you doing it though? Like, do you actually know why this works? Because in the Bible, it gives us like very clear parameters of where men and women should be in society and in culture and why it works so well. And it's like, those are good consequences to choices and actions that, that we do. Trad wives who value marriage, motherhood, and homemaking, yet reject the truth of the Bible, have nothing more but common grace from the Lord. These women think that they can reach a higher peg on the moral totem pole just because they chose to reject feminist ideals. Such rejection of the truth only results in Christless traditionalism. You are not saved just by virtue of being married, having children, or staying at home and embracing being a homemaker. So that kind of like wraps up everything that we're talking about in one nice little package. Just because they say they're anti-feminist,
which is actually interesting. I've been seeing a pattern of women that comment on these videos and say like, you can do that, but just don't tell people that this is what they have to do. And sometimes I see responses from the trad wives and they say like, I know that I'm privileged to do this, to be a stay-at-home mom or whatever. And I'm still a feminist because I think that women have a choice whether or not to stay home or go to work. And I mean, if you've listened to our episodes in the past, you kind of know that where we fall, that like we do believe that the overwhelming majority of women are called to be wives and mothers and to make their home their center. And so when, again, like you've said before, like when we have like women that are like, well, this works for me, this is what I do for my family, but you do you, I'll do me, you do you. That's not... Then it's very clear that this is not a conviction of the Holy Spirit.
It's just a preference.
It's a preference. And I was just telling Marcella at the dinner table, like we were eating dinner together tonight, and I was like, we were talking about homemaking, and I said, this is not natural for me. This is genuinely not natural for me. It is more natural for me to go and work all day and have several jobs. And it's been natural for me since I graduated high school to work and to not be in my home. And so it's not that I'm like, this is what I prefer. This is the most natural thing for me. It's that I genuinely feel convicted by the Holy Spirit that I need to be home-centered. And as the Lord develops that in my heart, like I do know there's going to be a day where I'm only going to be home and I'm not going to be working outside the home. And it's just like, just because like it's cool to see people that like there are women that are more inclined to it. Like I do think it was very natural for you. Like it was just like you loved it. And it was just like, it just felt like not easy. Obviously it's not easy. Like I know it's not easy. But it just felt like this was what you're supposed to do. And everybody was like, like she's happier. This is better for her. Like it was just like, duh. Like I feel like it just made more sense for you. And for me, it doesn't feel as like it doesn't make as much sense to me.
I feel like there's some
conflict
in there.
There's some conflict that I have in my soul about it. But it's like, I genuinely do believe that God wants this and that it is the better thing. And if we just embrace like the idea of like, oh, you do you and I'll do me, then there's no conviction behind it. It's more just like, well, this is what works for our family.
Right.
This is what works for me. This is what I enjoy.
Yeah.
But God doesn't actually speak to this. And we
Right.
do believe, as we've said in past episodes, that he does, that he has spoken, and that culture and the ages do not change what God has said.
No.
We have to conform ourselves to God's word.
It wasn't a cultural thing like, well, you know, in the Bible, when they were talking about that, they just meant it for, like, that time and era.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Or it's like, oh, women were just so oppressed that they didn't even know they could go to work.
Right.
So...
Yeah. Well, at the end of the day, I mean, traditionalism can't save you from your depraved state. Pagans are not closer to being saved just because they hold to conservative or traditional ideals. Only Christ saves.
Yes.
And that's a really big hang up for pagan trad wives. And it's sad because sometimes, like, in with us just being mistaken about a lot of things, we tend to think like somebody who's more like conservative or more traditional, that maybe, oh, they just like are a little bit closer to like being saved and a little bit closer to being saved. But like, just because those people, maybe their morals kind of align a little bit more with like
you can amen more things with them
standards. Yeah, and we can kind of see eye to eye with them a little bit more. Like their salvation, none of our salvations are anything short of a miracle.
Yeah. And
so I mean, and that's not to say that like we've reached the pinnacle of perfection.
No. No. So far from that.
But we know as Christians, we have something that pagan women don't.
Yeah.
And it has nothing to do with us. It has everything to do with the Lord. And so, I mean, even if you're listening to this and you love homemaking and you embrace the traditional gender roles, but like the God, Bible, Jesus thing is like not something that you've ever really considered or have rejected, just know that, I mean, we pray for you. Yeah. And that only Christ saves. That's really the only thing that we can say. That
none of our works, even if you can look like a Christian with a lot of your works, you know, do a lot of good. Yeah. But ultimately, like, we need our mediator, Christ. Like, unless we know that we're sinners and we know that all of our works are dead, then
it doesn't mean anything.
And then, so when you are saved and the Lord does save you, your works become a blessing unto the glory of God, and it doesn't add anything to you. You don't get like my late grandmother always said, like, oh, you get more diamonds on your crown. Yeah, which is like such bad theology. Yeah, but it's like people have this idea like that, like, oh, like the more good I do, like as long as I'm home with my kids, I'll have it in you know, like something. Yeah, me and God are good because I'm home with my kids, you know, or me and God are good because I cook dinner for my husband, and it's like, no, like all of it is for nothing if it's not unto Christ.
It can be those things, like you were saying, can be a result of thankfulness and wanting to serve him, you know, for his glory, how he has called us to, and commanded us to. But those things in and of themselves, and so I guess like our bigger encouragement is like, we love the trad wives. Yes.
We think it's great. We're excited that there's more women on the internet that are embracing traditional values, but that ultimately, if you don't have the Lord in your life, like it's all dead works, and it's not coming from a place of conviction. And that if you truly are like, you know, a trad wife yourself, then if you're going to identify yourself with the movement, that you should make it very clear with whoever you're communicating with on the internet, like, oh yeah, like I identify as like a trad wife, or like I like traditionalism, but it's not because, you know, me being like trad makes me better, but because it's more of a preference, a style I like, and I do think like this is what works for us, you know, and I think we should maybe stay away from trad wife language and move more towards like, I want to be a godly woman.
Yeah.
And this is what I believe the Lord has called me to do.
Yeah.
And encourage other women to do the same.
Yeah, other believing women, yeah.
Cool. Well,
This wasn't really much more that I had to say.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it, and I think that this is a good conversation, and I encourage you guys to like have more conversations about this if you come across it on the internet, and maybe comment on our Facebook or on our Patreon. Let us know your thoughts about the trad wife stuff.
Yeah.
And maybe you're like, I have no idea what trad wife is. And just look at the hashtags. If you look at the trad wife hashtags on any social media, you'll see it all and you'll know exactly what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway, okay guys, thank you so much for joining this week, and we'll see you next week for our next episode. Bye.
Bye.